Hello, welcome to Down to Earth Pat's Talk. I'm Pat's Discuss. A lot of you guys know me from the Yosu Fiesta podcast. Well, I am here by myself doing my own little thing, practically like a segment, be around 15 minutes, no more than that. And I just want to talk about some sport. This is going to be another outlet for me to get things off my chest verbally instead of on a caption on an Instagram post, because that's just my preferred method of giving out my thoughts. So we'll jump right into it. Obviously, Patriots have gone crazy for this for the first week of free agency. Made multiple signings. I'm not going to go all of them, but guys like Johnny Smith, Hunter Henry, Nelson Aguilar, Matt Judon, Kendrick Bourne, when Kyle Van Noy is back, Ted Karras is back, and David Andrews is also back, which is great news considering he almost left for a bigger payday. And I called this on Twitter. I had a thought that, considering reports came out a day or two ago that he was not planning to resign. He wanted to go get a payday, and at the same time, teams like the Dolphins, who need a center, they signed someone else. It didn't seem like there was much of a market. I had a feeling that if he's not going to go and get the market that he's not going to have the market that he thinks he's going to have, he may just come back for a 1-year deal and try and boost his value for next offseason. Well, it turns out he came back for a 4-year contract, which is even better, and we have a center for the next 4 years. Thank God. Losing both Joe Thuney and David Andrews would have been a real problem. Now this offensive line could be one of, if not the best offensive line in football for 2021. I'm really excited for that. I'm sure Damian Harris is also excited for that. And probably Cam Newton or whoever else comes in. Hopefully someone else comes in. With the tight ends, Smith and Henry, I thought we'd get one, and my guess was Henry at the time. We got Smith first, and I thought, okay, that's awesome. He's still very, very good. Maybe arguably better, depending on who you talk to. But we didn't just get one, we got both, so it doesn't even really matter. So now we have 2 tight ends, and it's just so much for Keen and Asiasi, right? Like, he traded up for both of those stiffs, and they went and got 2 tight ends. Not just one to have a starter and have someone else develop. Now you got 2. It basically shuts out Keen and Asiasi, unless Keen can do more of a fullback, halfback role, whatever. But Keen and Asiasi ain't looking so great for the near future. Also, Ryan Izzo's out the door. We got him for a 7th-round pick to the Houston Texans. Thank God as well, because he might have been the worst tight end I've ever watched in my life. And we really beefed up the defensive line with Adams, Henry Anderson, a dude from Miami, Godchow? I don't know how you say that, but I will take it. They added Matt Judon, the linebacker, Raekwon, the linebacker, who's actually not too bad against the run. I would like kind of similar to Atlanta Roberts in a way, except Atlanta Roberts missed the hole usually, so we'll see if this guy's any better. Oh yeah, Jalen Mills. Jalen Mills is here, and that makes more sense now that Patrick Chung is retired. I'm sure Patrick Chung told Belichick before free agency that he was planning on retiring. So Jalen Mills, who played some corner, didn't do great. Plays mostly safety, and he's probably more likely going to be a Patrick Chung replacement. They still might need to find a replacement for Devin McCourty, but we'll see about that. Or Duggar can slide into the starting role and move Mills to safety. Who knows? You got options. So let's talk about the wide receivers really quick. Kendrick Bourne, a good little player, and Nelson Aguilar. Neither are number ones. I've seen a lot of complaints about Nelson Aguilar's contract, and initially I look at it, yeah, it's a little bit of an overpay, but here's how I view it. It's free agency. You're bidding with other teams. That's what happens. You overpay in free agency. It's what happens to everyone. That's how you get these players. You're going to overpay, for one. Second of all, it's really not. You're going off of his production last year instead of his career. That's really what the Patriots are betting on. And he's taken up $7 million against the cap this year. That's not bad. I know he's technically will be our wide receiver 1, but here's a different way of looking at it. Smith and Henry are going to be our top 2 targets. That's pretty much a given. We have them for both of them for multiple years. Both of them are really good pass catchers. I'd imagine them 2 would be your top 2 targets. Aguilar might be your number 1 wide receiver, but he's really getting paid like a 2 or a 3. And he's really going to be acting like a 2 or a 3. Kendrick Bourne, he's a good little player. Nothing special, but he can get open. He can beat man coverage. He's been behind George Kittle, Emmanuel Sanders, Deebo Samuel. So he's been behind a pretty stacked receiving core. He'll be interesting. I think he'll be a good little ad. Nothing crazy. Again, not a number 1 receiver. And then you got Jacoby Myers and you got Julian Edelman. Hopefully, you have him back. I have a funny feeling he won't be, but hopefully I'm wrong on that one. And he will be back, and frankly, he could be your number 1 receiver. Like, you got the tight ends who can work the middle. Edelman can work pretty much anywhere. Aguilar's your deep threat. You have a deep threat. Nelson Aguilar is a deep threat. For all you people who really wanted a deep threat, sorry he's not Tyreek Hill or Brandon Cooks, but he's a deep threat. He's a really good yards after catch guy. I think he'll fit pretty well. One thing I do want to touch on, and it's a little late now to be mad about it because this happened before free agency, but it's the return of Cam Newton and the plan at quarterback, aka we don't have a plan at quarterback because Cam Newton's back. Isn't it annoying how when Tom Brady was here, like for those of you who heard about from the book, the Dynasty book, whatever it's called, they're like, Giselle's complaining about how they treat him like Johnny F in Foxborough or whatever, like everyone else. He leads a big comeback against Jacksonville with a slice in his hand, and Belichick's like, it's not open heart surgery here, and whatever. He doesn't re-sign. He doesn't give him the contract he wants. They signed Cam Newton. He just flat out cannot play, and he has a horrific year. But he brings him back and likes Cam Newton for what? What does he say? He says nice things about him. That's about it. What else has Cam Newton done? He's a good leader. Sure. He's a good locker room guy, and he's nice to Bill. He's nice to everyone. They kept the nice guy who sucks and let the greatest of all time, who just wanted a contract, go. Oh, yeah. That's chess, not checkers, right? They don't have a plan at quarterback. They needed somebody at quarterback other than Jarrett Stidham, who's before free agency, whose name is not even much of a point to bring up anymore is Jarrett Stidham, because what a catastrophe that was. They wanted him to be the next guy. You know that. Everyone knows that. Everyone who has a brain and saw what happened last offseason knows they wanted him to be the guy. They went through free agency. They went through the draft. No quarterbacks brought in besides 2 stiffs from the undrafted market. Okay, it was Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer. You think they really thought like, oh, if Brian Hoyer beats out Jarrett Stidham, no biggie. We could start Brian Hoyer. They didn't want to start Brian Hoyer. Why do you think Cam Newton came in? They wanted Stidham to be the guy. They saw something they didn't like last minute in June or July, when the offseason programs have already started, which means these players, this year they were meeting on Zoom calls, but still, off-season programs, the quarterback is talking with the rest of the team. You got the teams together. Last minute, they signed Cam Newton at the end of off-season programs because clearly they saw something in Stidham that they didn't like. They go into training camp. They were going to have a QB competition. And what happened? It was actually a pretty close competition for the first week. Stidham was actually playing well. Then he got that injury or whatever. He started throwing picks left and right. He missed some time. He came back. Well, it was pretty much over at that point. Cam Newton got the job. If you believe the reporting, which I do, is that they didn't like how he conducted himself. He doesn't seem to have the it factor. And I put quotes on that. He doesn't have the it factor. He's not a leader. He was a guy who was in awe of Cam Newton. He was happy to be there instead of trying to go and take the job from him. That's a huge red flag for a quarterback. That's a death sentence in New England. That much we know. They go through the season. Cam Newton gets COVID. They put Brian Hoyer in. Stidham was the 3rd quarterback. He didn't even dress for the first couple of games. Like, they literally buried him after that performance in offseason. Then Brian Hoyer was even worse. They put Stidham in, and who was meh. He did throw a touchdown, but he also had some pretty bad throws in there too. Nothing impressive. He would have had the start against Denver, because Hoyer just screwed up so badly that they didn't even want to start him against Denver. Then the game got postponed and Cam Newton was back. He stunk it up, and the whole team pretty much stunk up that game, and we lost that game to a Denver team that's near the bottom of the barrel. And even after we were kicked out of the playoffs, he didn't get the start. Which, what does that tell you? You didn't fight for the job back. I pretty much, what other reason do you have to keep Cam Newton, who sucked all freaking year in meaningless games at the end of the year, instead of seeing what your young quarterback has? There's only one explanation. He's not trying to get the job. They don't like him. They don't like his makeup. And oddly enough, you hear all the reports, it's like, there's no, like, doubt in the organization. Like, obviously he didn't look well when he came in as a reliever for Cam Newton in some of the games, but that aside, there's no report saying that the team doesn't think he can do it, like he can't play. They think he can play or has potential, but if he's not gonna take the job and be a leader, none of it matters to them, which is probably the right decision too. So unless he magically figures it out this offseason, and there's rumblings coming from Stidham's camp that he's starting to like take a hold and try and start leading this team or take the job, whatever. Unless he magically figures out how to do it, you probably won't see much of Stidham this season. If, again, he may not even make the team at this rate, because hopefully we draft someone. If we don't draft someone and it's Cam and Stidham again, and Cam still started, it's like, what are you doing? You're just wasting our time. Could Cam be better with this new team? Maybe. He could be. I'm not convinced. After what we saw last year, I'm not convinced. I don't have any faith that he can be a game manager, protect the ball, not put the team in bad spots, not give the game away when it matters. He did it all last year. When guys were open too. He had guys open last year. He did. So there's one more thing that what the free agent sign-ins tell me about people on the roster. One in particular is Chase Winovich. So you remember he had a very interesting year. He started out as a starter, I believe, and then a few weeks in, his playing time went down and down. He had that game against the Niners where he took out Jimmy G after an interception. He's arguing with Bill on the sideline. You really saw his snaps drop after that. Then by I think the last game of the year against the Jets, he played most of the game and had a pretty good game too, I think. But it's reports coming out, so you would think that Chase Winovich would be your guy, your pass rusher, the guy who can have out there on almost every down. But he's really just had a sub pass rusher role, and it's odd that they're not giving him much time as a 3-down player. So why is that? Well, I'm gonna go to a report by Greg Bedard after the Jets game. And he had a monster game against the Jets, which we also saw earlier in the season. In between, just a sub-rusher role. Why? Because he can't be counted on a down-to-down basis to do his job on the edge. And I'm not sure the team will ever trust him to do that. He's almost certain to have competition at the position next year, which he has now. There's also an issue with his mouth, which is a concern internally because he really thinks he's wrong as a bit of a locker room lawyer. I floated moving him to inside linebacker, but that has been shut down because of the lack of faith he will consistently do the correct things within the scheme. What happens free agency? We got 2 edge rushers, Kyle Van Noy and Matt Judon. Matt Judon for big money too. And so there's your competition. The Patriots, I believe that report 100% because why? Because they just brought in 2 veterans. If you have a guy you think is ready to take on that role, you don't bring in veterans for that. You don't bring in 2 veterans. Like, you could bring in competition. Like, fine. You already know Van Noy can play in the system. Matt Judon, you don't really know, can play here. You'd like to think you can. For as much as they paid him, he better. What does that say about Winovich? Does that mean he's just going to stay a sub-pass rusher? Does he need a few more years? Matt Judon, how long did Matt Judon sign for? Matt Judon's here for 4 years. Van Noy's here for 2. Winovich is 25. He's going to turn 26 this offseason, I believe. 4 years Judon is here. Like, that tells you all you need to know. They don't trust him. That report is spot on. They do not trust him to be a 3-down player. They don't trust him to keep to his assignments. I've watched on the film myself. As a pass rusher, he's exceptional. He's really, really good. Against the run, he turns into John Simon, who is gone and, by the way, sucks. John Simon was terrible this past year. He's been decent in past years, but this year he was awful. It was no wonder we got ran on as bad as we did. And he was a liability. Both Winovich and Wise were liabilities against the run. That report is spot on by Greg, and the Patriots basically told you it is based on their moves they made this offseason so far. So is Winovich just going to see a lesser role? Is he going to get traded? Could you see him as a trade piece? I wouldn't rule it out. And another reason I believe that report, just look at they showed this on TV when he got that penalty against the Niners, which I mentioned earlier, where he leveled Jimmy G, who was away from the play. He wasn't even involved in the play. He just did it. And he got a penalty for it after a pick. And Belichick went over to talk to him, and who did most of the talking? Chase Winovich. That ain't right. You think that's gonna sit well with Belichick, who's a player's just making excuses for something he did? Typically, a player just takes it from Bill and you move on. Like, that's typically how it goes. And several reporters throughout the year saw when Winovich was talking to coaches, Winovich was doing most of the talking. Being a locker room lawyer, I don't doubt that one bit. What evidence do you have to say otherwise? They don't trust him to do his job, obviously. He's a sub pass rusher on a team with no pass rushers. He was a sub pass rusher. What does that tell you? On a team that had no front seven, he was a sub pass rusher role. Locker room lawyer thinks he's never wrong. I don't know. He does something wrong. He's the one arguing with the coaches. I believe that. I 100% believe that. I think Greg was spot on with that report. So I think Chase Winovich is a name to watch. I can't tell you if he's going to really get traded or not, but there's no report in saying that he will. But he'll probably be back. That wouldn't surprise me. Neither really surprised me. He could get traded. He could be back. Who knows? Let's find out, though. I think you have to keep an eye on him. Anyways, I think that's all I'm going to cover for today. This episode went on a little longer than expected. Hopefully I can cut it up to 20 minutes. But for a first episode, there's a lot to talk about because it's been a long week. Thank you for watching. You'll see me on the podcast still plenty. That will still go along as normal. Anything you'd like me to talk about, please comment. Any criticisms of anything I said, comments will always be accepted and appreciated. And I'll talk to you later.